Okay, hi Professor Schwimmer. I hope you're well. I went back to the Hannahatchee again this weekend and had a bit more of a thorough sift. And I was going to send you a video of the various bits and pieces I found as you'd requested so that you can see. I don't think there's anything particularly earth-shattering in here, but I thought I'd show you anyway. And you can decide if any of it's of interest. And also, as usual, identify a couple of things for me that I'm not really sure on. Anyway, so this was the finding from this last weekend. So obviously there's a large number of these sea snail casts again. One, what I think is a Scolothos sparrow rather than a Hammonites or Hamenolites sparrow, which I can't remember the name of. Plenty of Scaphanorhynchus teeth, some intact, some not, some lateral with the cusps, some anterior. Some of them very, very tiny, which I presume that this is a Scaphanorhynchus teeth, just a very small one. A couple of, come on camera, a couple of Squalocorax teeth, as far as I can tell. I should say at this point, these are all my identifications, and as you know, mine are minimally qualified, so please do correct anything and everything that I say. But anyway, this is just what I've identified them as, and feel free to overwrite me. I found a bunch of flakes of what I think must be fractured chert from Native American working, although I'm not quite sure. You may be able to correct me on that. It may just be, in fact, it's probably less likely to be from work. It's probably more likely to be from just freeze-thaw fracturing and natural geologic processes, but anyway. I found quite a few pieces of oyster tooth, which I think, on the basis of reading your paper, I think is probably the Chrysostria. You can see with boreholes in them from what I presume must be sponges or worms or something like that. They're all fragmentary, but I'm guessing that given the sort of thickness of them and the layers, I think they must be Chrysostrias. One of the more interesting pieces was this huge lump of stone, which seems to be completely interlaced with what I think must be worm burrows. Look at them. Especially on top here. I was thinking about what this might be, and my best guess, because I can see, as you can see here, there seem to be a few fragments of wooden things embedded in it. My best guess is a big lignitized chunk of wood, and that these must be Teredo shipworm burrows or something like that. But again, I'm not really sure on this one, so your feedback is welcome. Georgia being Georgia, I found a lot of bullets. Excuse me. Things that I found that I didn't quite expect. I found what I think this has to be petrified wood. So I found quite a few pieces in this area. Things like this. I know that petrified wood is found in rivers nearby there. I know it's found in the Yuchi River, just over the other side of the Chattahoochee, which is only about 20 minutes drive away. So I'm guessing that it's not totally unreasonable to have petrified wood in the Hannahatchee, although I was a little bit surprised because I haven't read anything about it. But again, I could be wrong that this isn't petrified wood, so please feel free to correct. All right, let's move on to slightly more interesting things. The first thing was, I think these are quite a few pieces of, again, turtle shell. I would have thought maybe Chedegei, as you suggest, but I could be entirely wrong on that. You are obviously the expert. Interestingly, one of these pieces had two very thick layers of bone of what I think is turtle shell on the basis of sort of suture lines along the edge of that. It's still embedded in matrix, which was a little bit surprising, so that was not uninteresting. I found several pieces of just what I think must just be amorphous bone, which, focus, amorphous bone, which I imagine is probably almost completely unidentifiable for species or animal or anything, but showing just on the off chance. That one I thought might be part of a turtle's scoot on the basis of that little surface there, but again I could be wrong. A few of the pieces were slightly interestingly shaped. I'm wondering if that's a small piece of a vertebrae or something like that with a vertebral process or something like it. Again, these couldn't be not even bone for all I know. As I said, I'm not in any way an expert, but if they are, they're probably very, very fragmentary pieces of turtle shell or something. That one looks like it might be a piece of rib of some animal, although again, who knows. This was a little bit interesting, so I pulled this off the bottom. I don't know if this is bone, although the general shape of it makes me think it might be, but it is extremely dense and doesn't show any of the porosity that I'd normally expect from large bone fragments. If I'd been in the Peace River, I would have put it as a very abraded piece of dugong rib, to be honest, but obviously we're rather too early for that geologically. It may not be bone, but if it is, if you had any suggestions what it might be, whether it was a piece of Deinosuchus or mosasaur or something like that, it must be from a reasonably large animal. Have a look at it. Anyway, a few other things. This is one shark tooth that I wasn't sure about. It has been partially broken, so I imagine it's probably just an eroded Scaphanorhynchus tooth. But just on the off chance it's something else, like one of the Iscariza or something like that, I thought I'd show it to you. This is where things get a little bit more interesting and I'm a little bit less sure of what things are. So this is the bits that I might need help with identification on. I found a few things like this which look to be either just worm castings or something like that, although that one does seem to be black mineralized bone, and that one does have a fill in it there. So my best guess is probably small worm burrows or fragments of bone or something like that. This one was a little bit interesting. So this, to me, looks like a tooth. It's got the right sort of cross section with the cutting surfaces on each side. If this will focus. Yeah, there we go. So you can see with these definite ridges on each side, 180 degrees apart. I did wonder if it was possibly a giant fragment of a Scaphanorhynchus tooth, but I think it's probably not curved enough. The ridges, it's just a little bit differently shaped in cross-section, and to be honest, it might be a little bit big. What I was wondering whether this was, on the basis of reading your paper, was the tooth of an Encodus petrosus, or a sort of broken on the tip missing and the base missing, but having looked at your paper and a few other bits and bobs online, that was sort of my guess was an Encodus tooth, but again, I could be entirely wrong. That was obviously a vertebra, I should say, of something. I'm guessing a large fish. It's probably, I mean, what little I know of fish, probably, I'm guessing 2 to 3 feet long, but I could be wrong. If you had any suggestions on species, I would welcome them, but I imagine it's very, very hard to identify on the basis of a single vertebra. I was vaguely wondering whether it might be Encodus or a small Zabactinus or something like that, but again, who knows. I found something which I think is probably a piece of bone, but beyond that, no idea on species. That was an interesting shape. What I think is probably bone, though again could just be rock. I was actually wondering, on the basis of the very, very rounded shape of it, I was actually wondering if that was a coprolite, but it probably isn't. It's probably just very water abraded piece of stone, but coprolite would always be interesting to find. The last couple of things I have to show you. This, I think, is probably a small crocodilian tooth on the basis of the layering and the long vertical striations on it, whether it's a smaller gavial type thing or something like that. But I could be wrong, it could be a fish of some description. If you have any feedback, I would greatly welcome it. I found a few of these things which could just be extremely eroded bone, but they did seem to have a vague tooth shape to them, especially that one there. Obviously very chipped, but it would help if I didn't drop it. Yep, so possibly a tooth, or just possibly a worn piece of bone, and not at all interesting. And the last thing I will show you was this, which I was very unsure of. Sort of very unusual with that surface on it there. I feel like it must be the crushing surface of some sort of fish species, a mouthplate of sorts. Looking through your paper and doing a bit of Googling, I was wondering whether it was the mouthplate of a pycnodont, some sort of pycnodont fish, the Anoma, I can't remember the name, sorry. I was looking through your paper, the Anomacodus possibly, but I could be wrong. I did notice in your paper that it said most of the Anomacodus fragments were found by sort of microscopic stuff in the sifted material, which would be totally fair. So I don't know if it's unusual to find a mouthplate. I was also wondering if it could be a heterodontous mouthplate, although I think the surface bulbs are a little bit too well defined for that. It would be very cool if it was a heterodontous, because I actually grew up swimming in Port Jackson of Australia with Port Jackson sharks, which are living heterodontous, so that would be fun, but my guess is probably pycnodont, although, as I said, feel free to entirely correct. Anyway, this is this is me. Nice to meet you. Sorry for the long video, but I wanted to give you a good example of everything that I'd found, so you could have a look through and see if any of it was any remote interest to you whatsoever, and get your ideas on the identification of a couple of the pieces, mainly the big chunk of bone, the possible coprolite, and the possible pycnodont. But any feedback you have on anything is welcome. Yeah, and if you are interested in the unlikely event that any of these pieces are interesting enough to be of value to you, please do let me know, and I'll figure out a way to get them up to you or something. All right, thank you very much for your help. Sorry for making you watch a long video, but I hope it was marginally interesting, and yeah, I hope you have a lovely start to your week.